Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a special edition of Speaker Circle. I'm Lisa Askew. This is going to be our very first roundtable discussion. Last Tuesday, I talked a little bit about my personal experiences as a biracial woman here in America on the heels of the George Floyd murder situation that happened with the law enforcement officer in Minneapolis. Once again, we want to send our condolences to the family and everyone else that's been affected by the situation. Tonight, I wanted to expand that conversation and bring on some insightful and respected friends of mine that are all business owners and have a different viewpoint. So today, joining me, first of all, I have Miss Kayla Rodriguez. Hello, Kayla. I don't know if are you muted?
Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you now. Kayla is the CEO and founder of KDL Creative Consulting. She does all of my branding, website, and design. So welcome. Tell us a little bit about your background, Kayla.
Yes. So thank you so much for having me, Lisa. It's such a pleasure to be here. A little bit about me. I am African-American, specifically. Hi, Miss Caitlin. Shout out. I'm African-American background, and I'm a millennial. So I'm really excited to give, the millennials a little bit of, I can speak on our behalf a little bit, you guys. So I can't talk about this anymore.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Kayla. Next, so we'll be right back with you. Next, I have Miss Nikki Clowers, which is also a dear friend of mine. Hi, Nikki.
Hi, Lisa.
And Nikki is a social media influencer. She's also a doula, which is so phenomenal. Tell us a little bit about your background.
I'm a mother of 5 by biology, so that brings an in being a very diverse family, a diverse community. I have been a birth doula for about 4 years. I'm very involved in the advocacy for expectant mothers, birth mothers. In Jacksonville, like you and I have known each other for years now, Texas, and I find it to be an honor to be here. I'm here to learn just as much as I am to participate with you ladies.
Thank you so much, Nikki. I'm so excited. And I always love hearing about your stories with your children. It's like a fun episode of never a dull moment, right? And next, I have with me one of my returning guests to our speaker circle, and that's Miss Sonya Dunbar. Hello, gorgeous. How are you today?
Simply amazing. Thank you for asking.
Fantastic. So Sonya, I know people who've seen you were my inaugural speaker circle, so thank you. Tell us a little bit about your background. I know you are an advocate, not only for seniors, dental health, you're an author, you're a speaker, and you're also an advocate for the LGBTQ plus community. Did I get all of that right?
No, you did leave off some, but we'll accept that right now.
Well, you need to set us straight. Keep us on it.
It's long, but thank you for even acknowledging that. Thank you for allowing me to be on your show once again, Lisa. I am a Gen Xer. Gen Xers are 41 through 55. So I fall comfortably in that group. And like you said, I am an advocate for seniors. Yes. I am a dental hygienist that owns a mobile dental company, and we provide dental care for residents in nursing homes. But I speak around the world, bringing awareness to seniors and their oral health.
Fantastic.
It may be obvious to some, but I am of African-American descent. And I am honored to be a part of this show, to share some of my feelings and to hear from others as we charter through this different type of water that we're in.
I agree. And then you're also the mother of grown children, which is a great perspective to add to. I know you have 2 African-American sons that are adults. So we really are excited to have you. Thank you. And I cannot wait to hear your perspective and to get more of your insight. Thank you so much. Next, I have with me Ms. Vyvy Gomez. Hello. Vyvy is a phenomenal realtor. She does both commercial and residential. We met in our financial days back at doing mortgages with a major company I won't name. But Vyvy, tell us a little bit about your background.
My background always been in sales as long as I can remember, even when I was back in Colombia. Being here for 20 years and all I've done is sales, and love to help the Spanish community, especially when it comes to real estate.
Great. And I know you're a mother of one beautiful little Victoria. She's gorgeous. So it's great to hear that perspective too, being a mother of a toddler, I know, and a working mother and a business owner. Thank you for being here, Vyvy. We are so excited for inviting me. Great. And last but not least, I have the lovely Annie Tran. Hey, Annie, how are you? I know you had a little delay with the
Hi, it's Annie. Hey.
Tell us a little bit about your background. You are gorgeous as well. Everybody on this panel is beautiful. I'm like, wow, I love it. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Thank you. Well, I am of Asian ancestry. I'm Filipino, but I do have a little Spanish and Chinese in my blood. So, but mostly Filipino. And I am a former nurse, turned stay-at-home mom of 2 boys. And I pursued my passion of hairstylist and fitness. That's what I'm doing now. Now, hairstylist and fashion, which I'm doing now. So
fantastic.
I've went from nursing, and I've done many jobs. So, but now
that's how we find our passions, right? We see what works and what doesn't work.
At home mom and trying to pursue my dreams while being at home.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Annie. I'm going to bring all of our beautiful panelists back on, and we are going to get this conversation started. Thank you, everyone out there who is logged on. I saw a lot of great faces. Everyone's complimenting. Thank you. I see Miriam, Meredith is one of our good friends. Kelly is on there. Marshawn. Thank you, everyone, for joining on. We're going to get right into it. To get us started, we've all discussed what's going on in the world today. I want to know where you are in your space right now, and what in the world and the state of events frustrates you at this moment, or angers you, or even saddens you. We can start with you, Sonya.
Well, I'm going to be really honest, because I think that you want that on this platform.
Yes.
With first thing that hurts me is that I have 2 sons that are African American that are on the streets. They're college graduates. They're law-abiding citizens, and I'm afraid, because of the color of their skin, that I'm going to get a phone call and something's happened to them. So when a child is young and they're a baby, they're on your heart. But when they're grown, when they're in your arms when they're babies, but when they're grown, they have to be on your heart, because you can't keep them in your home, and you can't keep them close to you like you think you can keep a 1-year-old or 2-year-old. But when they're 20, 28 and 27 on the street, they're walking around. I see my sons walking around like a deer with a target on his back during hunting season.
Wow.
So that's a concern for me.
And that's a valid concern.
It's always a burden on my heart. The second thing that really bothers me is that I have a lot of friends that are not African, and I think it's a little uncomfortable. I thought, some of them have not called me, and I think that because they don't know what to say. My neighbor across the street, she seen me and she said, "I just want to say sorry." I'm like, "What are you sorry for?" She's like, "I'm sorry because of white people." I said, "You don't owe me an apology."
Yeah.
So I just think that it's just some tough. Some people may feel it's tough. I think it's just uncharted water.
Yes.
And I think it's some healing that's going to need to be done. And there's going to be maybe some uncomfortable conversations for people. It's not uncomfortable to me.
Yes. That's why we're here.
The only thing that bothers me is my sons.
Yes. No, absolutely.
They're a moving target. And I do not want to water the streets of America with another Black mother tears.
Fair enough. And, much respect. Now, Kayla, you coming from our millennial perspective, and I know you at this time do not have kids yet. What saddens and frustrates you with this? And what are you and your generation navigating with this? What's going on right now?
Yeah. So actually, it's funny because I think a lot of people, assume that millennials are more woke or, just more culturally and socially aware. And they said that that's actually not true, that we just think that we're woke. So we think we're not racist or we think we're not prejudiced or whatever. And they show that that's actually not true. Luckily, I've had, and Sonya, I apologize for your experience. I've had a lot of friends, my non-Black friends, reach out to me and love on me. We've made this a priority in our friendships, and I've made this a priority to just talk about our experiences.
That's great.
So I have had that, but it's hard to see the conversations. I did see a wonderful post today. And it said, there are two different conversations happening here, right? So you have the Facebook conversation and the Instagram, and it feels like Instagram is a little bit more productive and we're moving forward a little bit more, and Facebook feels not as productive.
Interesting.
Right. So it could be, so as people who are in social media, and Nikki, I'd love for you to jump on this, just the generational gap there, because millennials and Gen Z are more so on Instagram now, and on Facebook it tends to be the people before us. So there are two very different conversations happening here, and they're mingling a little bit. I think for me it's just saddened because I was blessed and privileged to grow up in a very diverse community.
Nice.
Hard for me to see just people be so angry, and people be so hurt, and people not want to listen or empathize. That's very hard for me.
Wow. No, that's really powerful. And thank you for sharing your perspective. Nikki, that's a great segue. What are you dealing with? I mean, you're a mother of multi ages, and you also, and I'm sure you'll share, have a child of color that you have adopted, which obviously she is just a ray of sunshine. And I know that she doesn't feel any differently in your home. So tell us a little bit about what's frustrating you right now.
I think for me, so I think it's important to know my background. Being from a tiny East Texas podunk town, like my hometown still does not have a red light in it. Okay. So I am unlearning a lot of prejudice and even covert racism that was happening that may not have blatantly been. I never remember a time that there was blatant racism. But as I've grown and I've moved away, and I've lived this different life, I can now look back and go, oh, like there it was. And so I am most saddened, most angered. What's frustrating is we have too many cooks in the kitchen. Like I come to this situation as a white woman raising a Black child, but with privilege. Like I was born into a privilege that I didn't earn by merit. I didn't do anything other than be born into it. And so I feel like I've been gifted this voice within social media and within my marketing and the things that I do, really to just listen and to learn and to read and to unlearn so much more, and to magnify the voices of my daughter and her family and her community, and saying, like, how can I be an active part of it? Because there are so many extremists. I don't feel like we have these extremists of, if you don't agree with me, unfriend me. Because never in any season of my life have I learned something by talking.
Yes.
And so I feel like if we really like if we came from different experiences, different walks of life, different seasons, I find more value in listening and then saying, now let's get to work. Because we can read and we can talk and we can do all these things, but unless you're willing to step into, like she said, that uncomfortable area and being, I don't want to burden my Black friends in saying, like, I'm sorry. No. Like, let's go to work. How can I? But it is uncomfortable for me to say, how can I serve you? Because I don't have the expertise. I don't have the experience, but I have a daughter that I have to answer to. And I want her to look at me and say, but did you show up for me? Did you show up for my family? So that's the season of life I'm in, is actively within my business and my personal life of saying, it's time to work.
I love it. You just gave me goosebumps. That's powerful. Now, Vyvy, I wanted to also hear your perspective. I know today you and I kind of went back and forth, and you were sharing some articles with me, and you're just like, it's so much. So tell me what's on your heart right now.
It's aching. It's so sad, and especially I think this time I've experienced situations like that before, but this one seems stronger than ever. It's because of everything that we were going through before with COVID. But it made me realize and like be really aware that when in my country in Colombia, we don't experience things like this. Like I never had to be exposed to, the difference in races and that it makes a difference and that it shouldn't make a difference until I came to this country. So it made me sad and question why here. And I was raised in my country, and I never experienced somebody being upset for being treated different because of the color of their skin. So it makes me want to do a little research on that. Like, what is it? It has to be obviously a culture thing. I don't know. There's so much. So it's aching. I was looking at all those videos. I was trying to stay away from social media because there's just so much feeded that you don't know what's true, what's being made up. People being opportunists, taking advantage of what's happening for many different reasons. So I was kind of trying to stay away. But today I went in and I was crying. I couldn't believe everything that's happening. I don't want to do this, to be honest with you. I almost canceled.
Oh my goodness. Well, we're glad that you had the courage to come, because that's the first step. I know, coming from a really homogenous type of country where everyone's the same ethnicity, it is a shocker. It's definitely a shocker. My mom is from South Korea, and I remember when she told me she came to the United States in the 70s and was like, she had never seen so much division just on the color of your skin. So thank you for sharing that, and thank you for being here. Annie, you're back. We hope that your internet are you there, Annie? Are you able to share with us kind of what you're frustrated with and how you're feeling right now in this environment? Okay, I think she might still be having some technical difficulties. So we're just gonna move on. One of the things that I have really been aware of, and I know, is this bias. And for those of you who don't know, bias, you may know, but it's just a preference for or against an individual group that interferes with your influence or your fair judgment. And it could be conscious or unconscious, right? And unconscious bias is like the implicit bias. And that's when, for instance, even with the whole Asian situation, how people were like, oh, COVID, the COVID stuff. People are like, oh, the Asian people created COVID. Or if you see a Black man on the street, if you might clutch your bag a little bit more, or if you see just different things, or if somebody is of a different sexual orientation and you just automatically assume things. So those are some of our implicit biases. So my question for the panel, have you been more aware of your implicit and your conscious biases and what's going on? And if you have, what's one of the biggest revelations you've come to realize? And I'll throw this to you, Kayla, first.
Absolutely. I think, so like I said, I grew up in a very diverse environment, so it's difficult for me to understand that people have, like, it's very just difficult for me to understand like why people are afraid of Black people, or it's easier for me to understand why people are afraid of white people, because I can hear, my friends, I have experiences with my friends now. I'm people, it breaks my heart because they're like, I'm really disappointed with how this has been handled, or, or people who are angry and they're like, hey,
yeah,
it's been going on for 400 years and now you want me to explain it to you. And it takes, it takes a lot of grace. And of course, I think we all have to grow in areas of implicit bias. And right now we're talking about race and this subject at hand, but we have to talk about implicit bias about genders, know, how we talk about, genders and sexuality. So there's also that expanding from there. And that's just one sector of it, how we look at different religions. And it's about what Nikki said, it really is about listening. And this is an area where I also think we can all grow. We can all listen more. And I think that's the thing that's beautiful about it. It's always a journey. You never stop.
I agree.
And I think that for me, probably one of my biggest areas of, I wouldn't say implicit bias, but one of my biggest areas where I needed to learn was differences in class differences. that was a big one for me to listen, where I had to listen and, really tune in. Luckily, I grew up and I didn't really have to think about that stuff that much, but there are so many people who have different experiences, and just opening my eyes to knowing that my world is not the world.
Yes.
And, realizing that there are, so many people experience so many different things.
No, and that's a great point, because I know I have had the opportunity to grow up in a more middle class mixed area, and then to be in a more cloistered community where people were really struggling versus seeing people in a more affluent area. With that being said, Vyvy, I know you having Colombian background, have you dealt with like biases, racism? Have you seen it, or are you clueless to it? With you being a Hispanic female, how has that been in your space?
I mean, I'm sure I've done it, and because I think I've been a little bit of infected by the whole stereotype.
Mm-hmm.
In certain types of towns and in certain parts of Jacksonville, that I have to go and show a place or go by myself. And it's like, I get people will be careful, it's really dangerous there. Then if I see
Especially with being a realtor, right? When you're showing houses and stuff.
So I'm not gonna deny that I've been guilty of it, but it's hard not to be infected by everything that you hear and the stereotypes in this side of town, and you see something's gonna happen if you go there, and then I see somebody, I feel a little bit in danger, or I have to be careful. But I'm not saying it to them, so I'm like, it's just something that I feel, but I'm not, I wouldn't show it if I feel that way. So that's probably the one example that I can think of that I've been guilty of.
That's great. It's in our subconscious. And Sonya, kind of tell us how you've navigated through that. I know that you said you have some of your friends who are not saying things. What type of biases have you experienced, or have you realized that you may have?
Well, one bias, while the other ladies were speaking, that I thought about even before this all happened, and I know that now that this has happened, it's going to even elevate. Being a business owner, I go to a lot of cold calls to facilities, and when we walk in, once we get an opportunity to present, we come in with our team, and often, more times than none, people do not realize or even assume that I would be the business owner, because most of my staff is Caucasian. So they immediately go up to my assistant and say, hey, they talk to them. And my assistant always have to say, well, Mrs. Dunbar owns the business. This is her. I've even had some of my facilities say that I have one facility in a rural part of Georgia say that they didn't want me or anybody like me that looks like me to actually come in the facility. This happened in 2019.
Wow.
So
wow. Just because you're a Black woman.
Swallow. But I was able to maintain my professionalism, and we adjusted to that.
Yes.
But now I know, being an African American business owner, I'm going to have to even fight harder, because I've had different conversations with people my age, which is 51, angry, saying that Black people are destructive and ghetto, and that's why they're catching stuff on fire and different things like that. So now I'm going to be looked at in a different way in my mind. This is just my opinion.
Yeah.
Because I know what I have experienced even before this incident.
And I think that's a generational thing too, for sure.
Absolutely. And one thing that I think that I would plug in this spot right here. I feel I've met so many millennials that in my time of traveling that were Caucasian, that has said that they weren't even ever raised around Black people. I met a young lady that said she never went to school with a Black person. And to me, that's a tragedy, to be an adult that has not been around Black people, because I think as humans, we're responsible. You watch television, you know that you're not the only nationality in the world. I think as humans, we're responsible to put ourselves in environments where we can meet other people.
Yeah.
I took my children to different places where I could never go. when I was younger. My children traveled out of the country before they graduated from high school. So it's important to, I think, as people, we need to, if you know you live in an area where there's no African Americans, then you need to take your children where they can meet African Americans. They need and Hispanic people. They don't need to live in a bubble. And you know what's happened right now? I read a quote from Dr. Martin Luther King this morning. He said, we all came over on different ships, but right now, baby, we're in the same boat. We're all dealing with COVID-19. We're all dealing with this riots. So when your children see that on television, you're going to have to explain something to them. You have to tell them something, why this is going on. So I think we have a responsibility to explain to our children diversity. And that's where it starts. It starts when it's young.
Yeah.
Even, it starts when they're babies. My children, we were raised, I'm from Detroit and I live in the South, but my kids were raised upper middle class. So they were raised in a mixed environment, but I made sure they met other people from other countries. And we taught them about it.
Yeah.
We taught them different ethnicities. We taught them different recipes and different food. And the main thing is culture.
Yes.
Culture. So,
absolutely.
So I think that to answer your question, the biases that I experienced, I've experienced before this all happened, being a businesswoman in this skin.
Yes.
And I just wanted to put that plug in about, as women, we're all women on here. It's our responsibility to indoctrinate our children to know other people, because right now we all in the same boat. Everybody losing something, everybody's scared of something, we all were shut down on COVID, so nobody's different or exempt from this right now. It's in everybody's face, whether we want to face it or not.
I agree. And that's a great segue. I would love to talk about what we're doing in our homes, because clearly what you see on TV, you can't control what other people do, but you can control your own environment. I want to toss it to Nikki, because you have such a wide age range in your home. How is the conversation and dialogue for your children? And I know you do a really good job for keeping them culturally competent, but what are the conversations you're having, and what tips do you give other parents on how they can have this dialogue?
You know what? I wanted to touch on the fact, as I shared my background, where I'm from, and kind of piggyback what she just said. My mom is an anomaly. She is a fantastic, fierce single mother. In our town, she advocated so strongly for all people. And it was, you love everyone. Like, this isn't a question. This isn't a debate. So I had a strong Black godfather. I had multiple amazing Black boyfriends. My very best friend was like one of the very few Black girls in our community. And still, the only person having that conversation with me was my mother. Not my teachers, not my community, not my church. Like, the church right now, we're not on good terms. We're not going to go there today, but we're not on good terms.
No.
So I carry that weight as, an honor, but as a burden as a mother to 5 children, not just my Black daughter. Like, my white children need to know what's happening. Like she said, this is affecting all of us in different ways. We're all walking through this. And so because of adoption, because of both my professional and personal experience, racial mirrors was just a given. We bring it in with the TV that we watch, with the books that we read, with the artwork in our home, with the books that are displayed on our bookshelves. You're going to see multicultural, but we also are aware that that's not a conversation we're having enough with all parents, and explaining what, like, the importance of it. So in our personal lives, it feels so fluid. We're in a position now of saying, okay, how do we transfer this into our businesses? How do we allow, not profit for me, but profit for this community, and saying, how do we continue magnifying these businesses and just honestly normalizing it, not to make it a taboo conversation of, oh, let's elevate Black businesses, rather than why are we not already doing this? And so that's where that prejudice is, that's where that bias is, and I don't want to say that ignorant in the true definition. So I want to be careful. Like, I'm not calling someone ignorant. When you just don't know any better, whose responsibility does that fall on? Like, even if you don't know what to say, like I said earlier, do the work, say something. So that's where we are. We are very open with our, so we have 2 to 13. So clearly we go age appropriate. We use a lot of children's literature. There are so many phenomenal books out there.
About race relations.
Correct. I mean, and everything from just Black superheroes to actual children's books written to talk about what's going on with police brutality. What is racism? It's breaking it down in an age appropriate way. And then with our 12, almost at 11, she would correct me, 12 and 13-year-olds, we're diving in. We're having those family conversations. They are watching the writing. We're not shielding them from it because, oh, this doesn't affect you. No, you need to know this is affecting people. This is affecting other communities, and we need to be actively, not just saying we're against it, actively working against it.
Absolutely. That is powerful. Thank you for sharing that. With that, Annie, I know you also have 2 young boys and your kids are Asian, and you have a lot of different multicultural people in your life. How are you all having conversations in your home? I think Annie may, oh, you there, Annie?
Yeah, can you hear me? I had to move. I don't know if moving to a different part of my house worked.
We
I don't know if you could hear me or not.
Okay. Yeah, we're still having a delay with you, so.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Well,
it's okay. It's a slight. Okay.
It's a slight delay. Whilst we're figuring her technical things out, yeah, it's still delayed, Annie. So I just want to say to you ladies, I'm so grateful for your transparency and your openness, because this is a challenging conversation, right? And for all of those who are out there listening, thank you for participating.
Talk.
Are you there now? Continue to drop your questions in the comments. We've had a lot of great things come by and people have really been engaged with it. Let's transition over to business. Now with, I know Vyvy, you being in commercial and residential real estate, have you had to do things differently in business? I know you talked earlier about biases in different sides of town, but just the attitude, or are people acted differently, or what's the climate for you?
It really was coming from before with the epidemic, having to do virtual tours, me going to the properties by myself and doing video. So no, I haven't really seen an effect because of what's happening right now with Floyd, but I'm sure it will. It's just people taking like a break from, going out and buying a house. It's not as active as it should be, like it was last year around this time. But it's like this is like a second priority. We have a lot more important things to worry about and figure out.
Yes.
Myself, I'm not out there trying to hustle as much as I was last year because
it's a lot. It's a lot. Speaking of which, what are you all doing to kind of digest things and stay, this is open, whoever wants to jump in, but just trying to stay grounded and not allow all this stuff because it will eat you alive. What are some of the things you ladies are doing?
I know I can speak for KDL here. So over at KDL Creative Consulting, I put out a message to just everything going on, Black Lives Matter movement, of course. And I just made an announcement, I'm like, hey, I'm going to be taking half days for the next 2 weeks, which started at the beginning of this week and will go into next week. Part of that is, yes, so that we can count and we can process, but another part of that is action. Right? I've been having a lot of conversations. I've been having a lot of conversations. We're trying to figure out, by we, I mean me, people on my team, people that we're partnered with, such as CBC Publishing, with Lisa's book, trying to figure out ways that, how can we contribute as business owners, as Black women, to really pushing it forward and helping it to, quite frankly, not just be a hype train. We want this to live on, and we have to take a little bit of extra time for that. So we ask for from our clients, which they've been so awesome. And we're so grateful to be able to do that. But yeah, just, we're like, hey, this is something we live every day. So we want to be able to take time to take on some personal projects that can really benefit the community.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I know I'm not just saying this because I'm biased of you and just adore you and your company, but I'm always impressed on how you as a businesswoman in your tender age, how professional you are and how much emotional intelligence you have and how culturally competent you are. So continue to be that change. I think that's phenomenal. We have a question in the chat for Nikki. And it says, how are you each handling your white friends that are not as prepared for these discussions as Nikki? Oh, I guess it's for everybody, as Nikki. Those that have little to no exposure to brown and black people and their culture. If you want to start with the Nikki, then we can go around if anyone else has their perspective.
No, I think just in conversation. I think a lot of things can be done with grace, with humility, and for me, just admitting, being vulnerable, and saying, I don't know. You know, like I want to have this conversation because I don't know. And then there's always the trusty block and delete. I mean, I like to use that in my life because we're only going to go so far. Like I said, I answer to God and to my daughter. And so I want her to be proud of me. I want her to know that I'm having these hard conversations and willing to have uncomfortable conversations with friends and family. But at the end of the day, you know, you can only feed those that want to sit at your table.
I love that. Feed those that want to sit at your table. Now, Sonya, I know you talked about so when your neighbor said, I'm sorry, or when you have different employees and things, how are you broaching that conversation?
Well, I seen Derek Lott, who was one of my favorite people that I've met through you. I love his book.
Yes. So you said you did not say it well, right?
Yeah, right. Got it right here. I'm diving in.
Okay.
I am a firm believer that silence is permission. Especially, he put something like silence is a crime. But I have on my wall, in one of these hundreds of things I have up here, is that silence is permission, especially in something like this. So what I'm doing, I'm a very direct person. So I like what Nikki said, but I come directly to people who want to be approached in love. Yeah. And I just hit it right on the head. Listen, I'm still the same person. We're gonna get through this. And I just have those courageous. My husband we call some conversation courageous, and then we call some conversations critical. So, and when I say we having a critical conversation, he just sit down. Brave right here. But I call these conversations courageous, especially with my employees, because I've been Sonya all the way around. All of my employees that even don't look like me, we've eaten them out. They've eaten in my home. I've been to their homes. My friends, I've been to their homes. They've been in my homes. I love their children that don't look like me. So I'm just right in your face type of person, but I know everybody can't accept that. So I'm in some people face with love. So I gauge how they feel about their space, but I am approaching this with everyone that I'm in a communication with, because I don't want anybody to feel uncomfortable if I can help it when they're around me, or feel like they owe me an apology. What does bother me, if I do have some friends that are being real silent about this right now that are white. And that's a concern to me. I'm coming right at the head with you, because why are you so quiet? We hang out together, we eat together. I mean, talk to me. What are you telling your children? What are you doing? You know, I mean, this is a situation. We don't ignore this. Don't act silent, because in my ears, this is okay.
Yeah, no, and you bring up a great point, because I had a conversation. Actually, Kayla and I had a good conversation. I was telling her how I'm reforming people pleaser. That's my thing. Like, I never want to rock the boat. I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. And I don't know if it came from just the way I grew up, and you're supposed to be seen and not heard. So I just don't like to have difficult conversations. I don't want to offend anyone. I don't want to impose my beliefs on people. If they ask me, I will. So I love your courage and things, and how you are speaking up about it. Now, another thing I wanted to ask you ladies is, what do you think is something that people can do right now? Like, besides having dialogue like this, is there any other thing or a golden nugget you want to share with our audience? And we do want to give love to Annie. Sorry that she wasn't able to, the internet wasn't working. So thank you, Annie. You're awesome. You added so much value to our panel. But yeah, what are you all doing now? What do you do now?
I do have a recommendation. And for anyone, this is so small. I know some people are gonna look at me and be like, "Are you serious?" I'm completely serious. This small recommendation: listen, when you see people, greet them. I know that sounds crazy. When I went running this week, I just started running during quarantine. I just started running during quarantine, and this, I have never had many people greet me in the past 2.5, 3 months as I did this past week.
Wow.
And it made me feel incredibly seen. It made me feel incredibly human. I've been both spectrums of this. Like, I've been on the ones where people act like they don't see you, and then I've been, when I lived in China for a little bit, everybody saw me, and that was very overwhelming. So, but just literally looking someone in their eyes and saying, "Hello, good morning, how are you? Walk today," and it makes you feel like I'm here and you see me. That doesn't mean that there's not more work to do. I know the lady on here will suggest other things, but something that simple. When there are certain places that I go here, and I know people see me and they like don't want to acknowledge my presence, and it's really beautiful when someone says, "Hello, how are you?" And that's something that literally can start today.
No, I totally agree. And I know, Vyvy, you have to run too. What are your closing comments, Vyvy, or something that you want to share that people can do right now in the here and now?
I think whatever you believe in, a religion, or if you're spiritual, or if you believe in any higher power, anything that you can do to get closer to the higher power, if you believe in one, pray, meditation, whatever good vibes that you can put out in the world, you're gonna get them back. I think we need to just, as humans, just come together in any way that we can, even if it's just in prayer, meditation, and just send good vibes to all the people that are suffering, going through this.
That's such a powerful point. I agree. I totally agree with you. And then, Nikki, do you have any closing things or stuff that people can do right now that you would like to share?
Honestly, I just would encourage people to get out of their own way, get out of their head, be willing to step into those uncomfortable territories, because at the end of the day, you know your heart. I believe your friends will know your heart. They will help you. They will guide you. My friends are, I don't want to ever go to a friend and apologize. Like Sonya just said, I don't want to apologize to my friends. I want to stand next to them. I want to stand behind them and keep them moving forward and saying, how can I serve you in this time? And so being willing to have those uncomfortable conversations because you know what your intentions are. We also touched on not self-serving. I think as when you're in social media, when you're in marketing, it's real easy to say, oh, look at me doing the right thing, rather than take yourself out of the conversation completely. Yes. Highlight strictly those businesses because you're putting attention towards those businesses, towards those women, those voices, those advocates, those authors, all of the ones that are doing both the mental, emotional labor and the physical labor. So just getting out of your head and being afraid of, I don't know how, and saying, teach me how and I'll do it.
Oh, that's powerful. That's powerful. And one last thing I wanted to ask Sonya about, in my reading and research, because I love to talk about cultural competency, and I have an acronym called LEARN, which I'll display at the end. And the R is about reading and research. And I had heard about this term called intersectionality, where people have more than one thing that they could be discriminated against. And I was thinking, like, if somebody is a person of color and they may be in the LGBTQ plus community, so they could be facing discrimination on two different areas. What would you say? How could they navigate that, Sonya? Or what are your feelings around something like that?
Well, Lisa, the LGBT community is a area that I do speak around the country on because of the diverse background in my family. So the LGBT community, especially someone that's transgender or identify a different way, they're going to have an extremely hard time right now. That's just a whole different level of discrimination that would take a whole nother show. But I just would agree with everyone else on here. At this time, we don't have any more room to hurt anybody else. the one thing that I would like to add is a call to action.
Mm.
I agree with what everyone said, but everyone has been around someone in their family, their careers, that has said something about this that may not have been positive.
Yes.
I feel that we need to, I'm not saying talk to strangers, but if it's your mother or your dad or your sister or your brother that says something derogatory about someone, I think that we have an obligation to address that. If you sit silent, like, listen, people, everyone, it was a bunch of people around when this man was choked for 8 minutes and 46 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
So it was other policemen watching. Everyone sits silent. Silence kills.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying go out and get on the platform and come out of your comfort zone, but we're going to have to come out of our comfort zone if we want to heal. And I'm not an angry Black woman with an attitude. I'm just very direct. And
No, you're
need help. So silence is a crime. I'm not saying get on a pulpit, but just in your intimate circles, if we address stuff, remember, if we don't address it, we bless it. And silence is permission. If we do, that's from Mr. Dunbar. If we don't address it, we bless it. And silence is permission. So your grandmother, your uncle, your neighbor, somebody in your intimate circle is saying something negative, just say, you know what, don't say that in my presence. Or you need to read this article or something. But to sit there and agree, you agreeing with that.
I agree. That's powerful. That's powerful. Do you ladies have any final comments?
Hey, Lisa.
Yes.
I said I had to go, but I stayed. It's too interesting. But I wanted to ask you, how are you feeling through all of this? What are you doing to stay grounded in your son? Has he asked you any questions? How are you dealing with that?
Well, thank you. That's a great question. For those of you who don't know, my son is on the spectrum for autism. He has Asperger's. And one of the things with children with Asperger's is they are obsessive about things. So he was really obsessed with the COVID situation. And we had to tell him because he wasn't in school. And I really have been nervous on how to navigate this for him as far as racism. He hasn't had to, knock on wood, experience it yet, but I know he needs to. So just having this kind of forum, listening to you ladies talking, it's really giving me a lot of courage and a lot of hope. And I've been having a lot of uncomfortable conversations with friends and their perspectives. And the biggest thing I've learned is you just can't judge other people's journey. You really have to try to understand, like I talked about the learn. It's about cultural competency. It's my acronym. And the L is listen to understand, like really try to understand where the person's coming from. You have to empathize with people. Empathy is learning the world through someone else's eyes, their heart, their ears. And then asking those clarifying questions. Having forums like this, I think is so powerful for us. And then the R in learn is to read and research. And that's what we've all been doing. And then the N is the now, like this is the time to narrate and navigate these things. And that's what I've been trying to do because I'm really big about extreme ownership. So a part of me is like, if you want to find the bad in situations, you will always find it. If you want to find the good, you'll always find it. And what the difference is how you decide to navigate. So I truly try to say, okay, let me look at the best. Even if someone says something ignorant, I want to give them the benefit of the doubt because they may just not know. I mean, I've had people say to me, oh, are you Chinese? You Chinese? You Chinese? I'm like, I love Chinese people. I got Chinese friends, but I ain't Chinese. Like, they don't know. They don't know. And we are a product of our cloistered communities. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. I thank you, Vyvy, for asking me for that. And I just want to thank everyone again for this dynamic open forum. If you all would like to connect with these brilliant ladies, I will have all their information on my social media pages. They all are thriving business owners. And Annie, we appreciate you. I know your internet wasn't working, but we're here for you. Let's continue to be dynamic in our spots. Anyone have any final comments you want to make before we sign off? It's just been, my heart is so full right now. And I just appreciate each of you and all of our comments. Any final comments?
Really quickly, you guys, action is everything. So even with that, small gesture, listen, listen is literally in action. And just let's remember that like shame does. When did you ever like really learn something from being shamed? Wherever you are.
Yeah.
And I think it's just, not judging others is really important. And the friends, Sonya, what you said about friends and really connecting with the people in your circles, those are the people you have conversations with, okay? Please don't go to people and try to have conversations with them.
No.
Like up close, Brene Brown said that you can't
Brown.
Up close. So yeah, close with the people who are close to you, try to have these conversations. And yeah, I want to make that clear because
I agree. That's so powerful. I love that, Kayla. Actions from the mouth of, and I know she's probably like, I'm not a baby, but I just love it.
I
love it. And you're so wise and way beyond your years. And that tribute to your parents, and they're both on, Derek and Kim. I mean, they did a great job. So great job. And Nikki, I did put that in the chat. You want to tell us a little bit about what you were saying? The book you were recommending?
For sure. Because again, I think the conversation is, but where do I start? How do I get involved? And like she said, are you hearing the noise or are you listening to the words? And so that there's a big difference between hearing what's going on and actually listening. And so a really great book, a starting point is White Fragility, Why It's So Hard for White People to Talk About Racism. And it is, like, it's okay to admit it's hard to talk about, but what are you going to do about it?
Yeah, and I put that in the comments, the white fragility.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, ladies. I'm not going to hold you all any longer. I appreciate it. Thank you for your time. I'll have everyone's link on my social media. Let's continue to grow together. Next Tuesday, I will have. So thank you, ladies. I'll make sure all of you are signed off. I appreciate you so much. Next Tuesday, we're going to have another speaker circle at 6:30, same place, same time. Let's continue to grow together. And before you go to home today, think about this conversation. What are you going to do to make a difference? I really appreciate your time and have a phenomenal evening.